Hi, it's Maria. This is the third time I'm doing this video, so please bear with me. But this is because it is quite the video, let me tell you. And so, but one time the phone fell, another time something else happened. So I guess I was to do it this third time here. But again, this is Maria Unfiltered, where my story is exposed. And in this video, it is number 23. It's part 23. And the title of this is page 6 of my forgiveness list. And so the title is it the ex or Johnny Depp who won the largest defamation verdict in the history of the United States? So you'll really like this video because it's an eye-opening journey into our legal system and how many of us have been used and abused without knowing the filth that was said about us. And so I just want this is a caveat here, and I'm not casting any aspersions on Johnny Depp. I've never met Johnny Depp or Amber Heard. I don't even know anything really about the case. I can't tell you if it was about slander or libel. I don't know if she was accused of saying things or writing things, or I have no idea. And I really didn't want to do it. I really did not want to click onto those YouTube videos or watch it on Google or even read anything about it, because I think it was just too close to home in terms of my own having been sued for defamation for something that was really a very bogus trial and very strategic in order to get my family money. But for those of us who have been sued, ironically or strategically, we were accused of lying, of defaming, and of besmirching the reputations of those who sued us, right? When in fact, they were the ones who lied, defamed, and besmirched our reputations, or I should say, my reputation, because I can't speak for anyone else, and it would be unfair for me to do that. It was, what I noticed is it was all about projection. And it's as if the people are pointing their finger. You know, you remember seeing this as a child when little boys are trying to shoot their adversary, cowboys and Indians or whatever. And so, do they do that anymore? I don't even know. My children are so grown. But, you know, you point one finger and then you have three fingers pointing back at you. And so when you are blaming someone else, you really need to take a look at yourself. And because that's kind of a subconscious thing, that you are blaming them for something deep within you that you subconsciously see as perhaps a fault of yourself, within yourself. And so my perpetrators seem to be perfectly willing to lie and deny and to submit false and manufactured evidence to completely derail the litigation they filed against me. And so the litigation ensnared me in kind of a bogus, not in kind of, but it was a bogus defamation lawsuit, which even Johnny Depp couldn't outdo. Mine is approaching. Well, actually, he's no longer on the planet. But it was approaching 500 million at a certain point in my life. And so if the judgment were real, I would owe $500 million to a man who set this whole thing up as, I think, just a big joke. A big joke that would actually render him quite wealthy, having stolen my family's fortune. And so the 9.7 million, which was the verdict in 2006, with cost of living and inflation, is actually over 13 million now. And from what I read just in the headlines of the Johnny Depp defamation win was that his win was 10.3 million. I could be wrong because I don't know the other details in the case. I just know that that was the headline that I saw. And so for me, the price tag of my verdict, the verdict against me, was so ridiculous that I could never get out of it, right? Because even the interest would be well over $1 million a year. And so the debt just kept growing and growing because there is the statutory 10% daily compounded statutory interest, which now at this point would be about 48 to 50 million. And so plus there was more money taken because it was prior to and subsequent to the verdict. So prior to, he wanted to settle, and so it was kind of like throwing him some money and saying, okay, now just leave me alone, take that money. I know all you want is money, so let me give you some money and just go away. But in fact, he took that money, and then he sued, and then we went to trial, and we had this 2-week trial. And then subsequent thereto, he also got more money because it was basically carte blanche to come in to my home and to send moving vans and to cart out everything I had. And so, so it was kind of my jaw just dropped to the floor, and perhaps your jaws are dropping to the floor when in utter shock and disgust that this is allowed to happen in our country, in this great country of ours. And so what I've done is I've tried to put numbers on some of these key points to make it a little more clear, because in past videos, I guess I've confused some people because there's so much going on, but really it's very simple. It was one legal case after another, and they were all related to money. And so as he kept winning and winning and winning, he kept destituting me until he destituted me, right? He kept taking and taking and taking. And he said, I'm just going to keep suing you till there's nothing left. And that's actually what he did. And so there are people on the planet that are so psychopathological that they think that that's actually funny, to destroy someone's life for nothing. But then again, you hear about people on the rampage for shooting people that they don't even know. And so you hear about, there's so much mental illness out there right now, and there are people that are so desperate. And so when you think of someone who is just so obsessed with money and ruining someone's reputation, you can kind of understand that that this is real, and that sometimes we need to speak up about it because people don't believe it. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to really tell you the truth of what I've seen, both as it has related to me and as it has related to other people I know, and that their lives were completely ruined. For me, I could have allowed it to ruin my life. Fortunately, I do believe in, definitely a higher power, and God and my angels and Jesus and the saints and the heavenly beings and all the energies in our universe. And so I have been very blessed. And yet, I lived in a car for 9 months, and I lived in 3 shelters in the ghetto. And the whole time I was doing that, I just kept asking why, because the whole thing was just a joke. And yet, it is what happens to people. And I definitely need to make people that can make a difference, I need to make them aware that this actually goes on in this country, in our beautiful country. And so one of the things, one of these points, the second point I wanted to make is that you have to, excuse me, I just get so anyway, the first thing is that the case was based on a letter I didn't even write, right? So, and that you can't sue for something that never happened. And the second point I want to make is that you have to be damaged in order to have financial compensation in any way. And yet he wasn't damaged, not even a dime. And that he claimed the letter cost him his job. And he wanted me to pay him $16 million for future earnings. That his paid expert witness said that Maria cost him. And yet the truth was that there were no losses at all, no financial losses at all. He actually did say that because of the letter I sent, he wasn't invited to some Christmas parties, but that was, it's not actually a financial loss. I think maybe people just really might not have wanted to include him when he was suing his wife, his ex-wife, the mother of his 4 children, for something that would actually destroy virtually every human being, because who could pay that kind of money? Anyway, he didn't lose a dime, because what I had been told is that prior to our going to trial, or maybe it was prior to his filing the lawsuit, maybe, was that he had made $5 million and he was out of work. But he was out of work because he was retired, or perhaps he was taking a pause from one job to another because the company that he worked for was actually bought out. And so he received what they call on Wall Street a golden parachute. And his company was bought out by Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York City. And Mr. Giuliani paid the employees, or maybe he bought the company and then the company that the ex was working for gave him a severance package of about $5 million. So I'm not sure exactly how that works, but yet he played the victim, and yet he was voluntarily out of work. And so that was kind of interesting. So the next point was that I think he just found this as a big joke. It was really hilarious to him to sue me and play the victim, all the while he was laughing all the way to the bank. And so yeah, it was $16 million. And after 16 years, I actually couldn't handle being married to someone who seemed to me to be so over the top unethical. So despite my father encouraging me to stay until the children went to college, I couldn't. In fact, it was actually painful for me, and maybe it's painful for other spouses, to be in relationships where the level of integrity is so low. It's negative. And if you can have negative integrity, I guess you can. And so, I used to just think, oh my gosh, I just have to cleanse myself. It's just I need a shower with a power hose, because I just couldn't handle the lies. It was just too much. It was actually an insult to my intelligence and an insult to my soul. And so anyway, the reason why I'm telling you this is because I'm not alone in this. And I feel the pain of not only what I've gone through and the pain that my children have gone through, because as a result of this ridiculous trial, my children haven't spoken to me in 17 years. And so if it's happened to me, I'm not alone and I'm not special. We are all placed at risk of losing everything if our legal system allows this to go on. And so, it's a recipe to destroy one's credibility. When you say, oh, she received a defamation judgment, even if it's for $100, not $10 million, but you just say, oh, it's a female driver, how they are, or, she's a nut and a slut. That's what a lot of divorce attorneys like to portray the other side if they're representing the man. And then the reverse is true as well, because if they're representing the woman, they want to portray the man as being a pedophile or being, having all these, hooker friends and things like that, or being, just being totally yuck. Anyway, so it's true for both genders. It's just that more and more it appears that it's the men with most of the money, and so that's why they say, oh, the woman is delusional, and so let's try every trick in the book to strip her of everything and to try to get her committed to an institution, or to have her Baker acted, which happens in some cases. Florida is one of those states. I think New York as well. I think it's called something different. But when you say, oh, the letter isn't real, or he didn't lose a dime, or actually he made money and he was retired. He retired during this whole time that this all was going on. And so he was just having fun, I think, in a very perverted and a very sadistic way. And so it was just really a game. And so he took no responsibility for that. And so among the upper echelons, money is what talks. And so as for the trial itself, the evidence was false. Other evidence was, for instance, my letter, the actual letter that was sent, was withheld. The testimony was perjured. There was a lot of perjury going on in that courtroom. And the testimony was the expert witness was for future earnings. So he filed this when he was 50. And I believe we had this trial, when he was 52. And so he said he would lose $16 million. And I think the expert witness believed that he was given information that the ex had just this glowing and stellar career, when in fact it wasn't a glowing and stellar career, at least during the 16 years that I was married to him. He had serious employment issues, let's just say. And so he was awarded the largest defamation verdict in the history of the country for 9.7. And I did already tell you that it was with 2.35% inflation, really. And so it was over 13 million. And so, again, with the 10% interest, I would owe him $500 million by the time I was 80 years old. Oh my gosh. And he testified that he was unemployable. So it was just a lot of lies just being shared through the courtroom. And so actually my attorneys asked if they should pass the hat in the courtroom for him. And even he and the judge and jury thought that was hilarious. They all started laughing. But the ex actually claimed that all of his employment issues were because of Maria. I was just, a good fall guy, right? It was my fault for everything. And so on the one hand, he claimed that no one liked me. And on the other hand, he claimed that everyone liked me so much that he had no career without me. And that's why he had begged me not to leave him. But, Chicago, it has a very tightly knit social circle. And where once accepted, you were blessed beyond measure. And so many times, I wondered why and how we had been chosen to be a part of this, wonderful elite group of movers and shakers. And so that actually, during my marriage, had been my saving grace. Because as much as I dreaded being around my husband at the time, when he'd whisper threats in my ear and smiling to those around us, and I couldn't escape. Seeing my friends at times was just uplifted me and gave me hope, because I regretted not being more open with them. But as with any social circle, or whether it's just your neighbors or your family, we don't really expose ourselves to. We don't really want to burden other people, and yet and at the same time, we don't really want to expose all the things that we've put up with, because it's embarrassing to think that we stay in relationships where we are so unappreciated and mistreated. And that goes for men and women. And so relationships are what we are here to focus on planet Earth. I think during this incarnation, and in past incarnations as well, it's all about relationships. And we have relationships with our significant others, and we have relationships with the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. We have relationships with our neighbors, our children. They're not sexual relationships or loving relationships, but they are relationships. We have relationships with everyone and everything. We even have a relationship with our desk and with our computer and with our phone, because we need it when we want to use it, right? And so we are in relationship with it. It serves us and we serve it. And so because we have to take care of it, otherwise it will malfunction or break or whatever. But I guess, let's see, what else can I tell you? Actually, the defamation case, it was a great PR stunt. And it was actually a boost to his career, remember? Because during one of the previous videos, I had said that during the honeymoon, he said that he wanted to be widowed rather than divorced. Remember that one? And so his legal team took that strategy to the hilt, because we all know that it was front page news, right? With a huge picture of me, and the headlines on the Chicago Sun-Times was "She Must Pay," right? And it was on TV news, and articles and newspaper articles, and reporters and journalists wanted to write juicy stories about some crazed and scorned woman, who was on a writing rampage, and that dared open her mouth to expose what she had seen and experienced, more importantly, as she was embroiled in the kind of the divorce from hell, if you know what I mean. And so the ex must have been ecstatic, because he probably got on the phone and was calling moving companies to send huge trucks to take my possessions, right? Including a piano that I loved and held dear, that my third son had bought for me when he was born. And so everything kind of went. And then he called brokers for my investments. And then he called realtors, how he was going to get my home and help himself to a free-for-all. And then he called banks as to how he was going to get into my bank boxes. And then he called utility companies as to how he was going to get like a pitiful $100 account deposit. I mean, that's how low it had gotten. And so because he was ready to scavenger anything that he could. And then after he finished with me, he then started going after my father and my inheritance. And so let's see, what can I tell you? It was on a Friday morning. Oh, you need to sit down for this. I hope you're sitting down. The verdict was read on a Friday afternoon. And by Monday morning, there were articles about him in the papers and in the financial news and things like that, that he had a new job. And so he didn't lose future earnings. And he had this wonderful new job as a partner in a highly paid position at another financial firm, heading their Chicago office. So when I finally came out of shock of that one, I realized that it really was just a humongous PR stunt to portray himself as a down-and-out, poverty-stricken victim of a terrible, horrible, rotten former spouse, right? While, I repeat, he was laughing all the way to the bank. And what I found so strange about the whole thing was that he wanted me held responsible for his past, present, and future career failures. And so anyway, let's see, what else can I tell you? As for the letter, people in government and law enforcement advised me to write that letter and tell the truth about the threats and my fears. And so, unfortunately, there are women who disappear all the time, and they haven't spoken up about their lives. And so I encourage every man, woman, and child who hears this video that we must speak up, because I was like the quintessential secret keeper. I didn't want to tell anybody about anything. In fact, when my ex-husband was all these crazy threats, I didn't even call the police. And in fact, sometimes he threw things at me and pushed me, and I fell. And so, but I never wanted to call the police because I didn't want my children to see police cars in the driveway. I didn't want the neighbors to see it. I just wanted it to just go away. I wanted him to just go away. Leave me alone. I just want a divorce. I just want to leave you. I want to go and live a better life. And so what happens is we just don't tell anybody about it. We don't even tell our family. I never revealed to my parents or children the level of abuse that I was sustaining. And so what happens is people disappear, right? And so you think, oh, it's set up as an accident or a suicide. Oh, she was so depressed, she was suicidal, or they framed someone else. And so I needed to speak up about what I saw happening. And I encourage everyone else out there, if you feel the least bit endangered, if you feel that things are getting out of control, and that there are things behind the scenes that might jeopardize your safety, or that are jeopardizing your safety, right then and there, please don't stay in an abusive situation. And sometimes actually the most volatile times for people with anger management issues and psychopathology is when you say you're going to leave. So make sure that you have enough people behind you who understand exactly what's going on, and that you're getting good therapy and good advice. I, of course, didn't engage in that at some point during the divorce, but I don't really want to talk about the divorce now because I'm going to make a separate video about the divorce. But and in terms of the jury selection, I just wanted to say, in terms of Oprah had Dr. Phil helping her with jury selection. Well, in my jury selection, I felt like it was David Copperfield, that had overtaken the courtroom, because my attorneys were just like, oh my God, this is all too much over the top. And so it was like the George soap opera, and so it was just the whole thing was just so abusive, and I don't wish that on anyone ever. And yet my ex was actually more concerned about, rather than the letter. I mean, he was concerned about the letter, but he knew he had all of his bases loaded. The topic of conversation was my letter at the opening night of the Joffrey Ballet in Chicago. And so he whined that, again, he wasn't invited to Christmas parties, or he was seen in a not so favorable light. And so, when you notice the violations of ethics, you realize that the judgment was moot, and besides which, my father had put a spendthrift clause in his trust so that no one could get $1 of my inheritance to satisfy a lawsuit. And yet he just went ahead, his lawyers filed papers and motions and things like that, and he just kept taking and taking and taking. And so it's important to really have a lot of faith and trust in your legal advocate. Yes, Absolutely. And if you don't feel that you're appropriately um, represented, then you need to make other arrangements. Of course, I was just so in such a whirlwind of crazy because I had moved to Florida and I was flying up to Chicago for that. And I had brought in an expert domestic violence attorney from Pennsylvania who I think he had relocated to or from Louisiana. And so, and he actually was so disgusted by my case that he said he actually left before the verdict was read. He left me all alone on Friday, and he said, I have a case in California, so I'm just going to leave. So I was there all alone to hear about this horrible judgment, and then see the ex and the PR people who were just hugging and kissing him and everything, while Maria just stood there going, oh my gosh, $10 million, and it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing like like wildfire. Anyway, there were so many conniving maneuvers, and so let's see. I don't want to keep this going, but I did write down a couple little other notes. And I think I'm just going to end it right here. And so I'll make another video another time. But I will make out another video probably tomorrow on another topic, on another page on my forgiveness list of the people I have to forgive. And so, this is kind of, this is good because it brings me back to the whole gist of this. We have to forgive ourselves because, as I pleaded with all of you to please let people know when you feel that you're in danger. Those that we really blame the most are ourselves. We blame ourselves for staying in a situation that is so unhealthy for us. And worse yet, we blame ourselves for ever getting into those situations. And we have to know that at the time, hopefully we did the best we could. And that doesn't mitigate the pain that we've gone through. We've learned from it, and now we stay the hell away from anyone or anything that would possibly not be in our highest good. And so remember, it's all about making appropriate choices and looking out for number one, because it's all about self-love. And when we love ourselves, then we can forgive ourselves for past transgressions that we just didn't know any better at the time. And so, or things that were actually switched around because I wrote the letter because I knew I needed to write the letter. And I believe that letter opened up a lot of eyes. And so I really don't regret writing that letter at all. Even given the financial destitution and living in a car for 9 months and living in homeless shelters. I can't remember if I already said that or not, because this is the third time I've done this video. For some reason, the phone fell down and the volume wasn't working. And so anyway, I think we just, the bottom line is, it's forgiving the people because that's who they were, and they would do that whether they were married to us or someone else. That's just their nature. And so we need to just understand that and move on and know that that we're not to stay in anything that doesn't serve our highest good. I know I keep repeating myself, but love yourself, forgive yourself, love others, forgive others, and yet be strong and just say, no more. We're not putting up with this BS anymore, right? And so tell the truth. That's key as well. And so I just want you to know that I'm really proud of you. And so keep going, and you can do it, because we all have challenges. That's why we're here on this planet, to learn and to overcome those challenges. And slowly, the whole energy of the planet is rising, and you are too, vibrationally. And so just know how beautiful you are. Okay? And I love you.